Camera 1 and 2 are rolling. Camera 1 rolling, camera 2. Okay. Take 32. Let's go. Oh. Hello everybody, my name is Mark and today I'm going to educate you on something that I think all of us should be concerned with at the moment, and let's just hop right into it. Now, as you can see, this is a model of the Earth called a globe. Earth resides in the habitable zone of our solar system, also known as the Goldilocks zone. Essentially what this means is that our planet doesn't get too cold or too hot. But that could change in the coming years. Have you ever asked yourself the question, when will humans go extinct? Or when will there be a crisis that will lead us to the brink of extinction? Well, not to alarm anybody, but that threat is imminent. According to the Existential Climate-Related Security Risk, a scenario approach written by David Spratt and Ian Dunlop, 35% of the global land area and 55% of the global population are subject to more than 20 days of lethal heat conditions beyond the threshold of human survivability. Now, I'll give you some context onto this. They are referring to the global problem called climate change. Now, climate change obviously changes our climates around and alters how the weather is in some areas. Now, I want to go in depth into two phrases that they use here. Lethal heat conditions and beyond the threshold of human survivability. This infers that our human physiology is not enough to take this kind of heat. Therefore, there will be some casualties in terms of climate change. And they infer that this will happen in the year 2050. And that's not far off. 2020 is within 30 days as of this recording. 30 days, 2020. That will be in the next 3 decades of our existence. Now, climate change is a byproduct of something far greater. Pollution. But before we dive into pollution, we have to define what it is and give a rigorous definition. It's defined as the presence in or introduction into the environment of a substance or thing that has harmful or poisonous effects. Now, pollution can't be generalized into one thing. It's many things that can contribute into this greater cause. Now, as I stated previously, there are many things that can contribute to pollution and global problems as a whole, but one of the main factors actually is water pollution. Now, why is water pollution so detrimental? We have to take into account that the Earth is covered in 70% of water and 30% of just land masses. So that's a lot of water. There are actually many pollutants that contribute to water pollution, but one of the most prevalent ones, if not the most prevalent one, is plastic. Plastic is very abundant in our societies today. We use it for nearly everything. And why is it so abundant? Firstly, it's so abundant because it's convenient to make. It's cheap. You can mold it to whatever you want. And there's a plethora of things that people use it for. In this case, plastic bottles, a lens cap, the remote that I'm using for these lighting fixtures, this globe, the tripods that I'm using, just plastic bags. The point that I'm trying to get across here is that plastic is everywhere. We use it for a lot of things. And plastic has one major flaw. It's non-biodegradable, which means that this plastic bottle might decay in 450 to 1,000 years. A whole millennia. A millennia. That's 1,000 years where this bottle might decay. Whereas paper might be 2 to 6 weeks for it to decay, which is a substantial difference. Now, you've heard me talk about plastic being abundant in our oceans and is polluting our oceans, which is true. However, I've not given you a full statistic, so I will now. According to the Natural History Museum, approximately 4.8 to 12.7 million tons of plastic will end up in our oceans annually. Yes, annually, meaning yearly. That's an immense amount of plastic, to say the least. And that's not accounting for the immense amounts of plastic that are already in our oceans as of today. For all we know, it could be 100 million tons, or 250 million tons, or a bigger number. Who knows? We can't determine that just yet. Now, if you're watching this right now, you might be living in the state of Colorado as of right now. And you might be wondering, why should I care about water pollution? I don't live near a giant mass of water, do I? Colorado is in the heart of the US, so why should I care? Well, you should care because according to the Earth and Space Science news source, 80% of our oxygen is created by a marine life form called phytoplankton. Now, phytoplankton is a subcategory of plankton that utilizes photosynthesis in order to create oxygen and glucose. Fun fact: photosynthesis is where life forms use water, carbon dioxide, and energy from the sun in order to create glucose and oxygen. Now, oxygen is a byproduct, which is why it's released into the atmosphere, and that's greatly beneficial to us because we need oxygen to survive. From the very moment that you are born to the very day of your death, you need oxygen just as much as you need water. Now, 1 out of 5 breaths you will ever take are created by these phytoplankton. 1 out of 5 breaths that you will take. Now, if climate change, global warming, and pollution were to continue and get more destructive across the line, these life forms will cease to exist. These will die out, such as the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The Great Barrier Reef is a giant collection of coral reefs in Australia, and they have died. 50% of it has died due to global warming, climate change, and pollution altogether. 50%. Now, you've heard me talk about climate change and global warming pretty extensively throughout this. These are actually caused directly by air pollution. Air pollution is a major problem to many countries around the globe, including China, India, and other countries. Air pollution is caused by a plethora of things, but one of the main causes is combustion of fossil fuels and petroleum. These release noxious gases into the atmosphere, which include sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, chemical vapors, and gases. When these are released into the atmosphere, they severely damage the ozone layer. Now, the ozone layer is actually part of the atmosphere, and I will show you the subcategories of the atmosphere. It ranges from the troposphere to the ozone layer, to the stratosphere, to the mesosphere, to the thermosphere, and finally, the exosphere. Now, the ozone layer is comprised of an unstable allotrope called oxygen-3. According to the Free Dictionary, it is formed naturally in the ozone layer from atmospheric oxygen by electric discharge or exposure to ultraviolet radiation. It's poisonous, but however, it helps us greatly, helps all life greatly. UV rays are extremely harmful. Number one, because it can cause skin cancer with us and cause cataracts in our eyes, which is why some of us might need glasses because of the exposure from the sun. Now, let's take a look at this visual aid. Here, let's look at this camera. The atmosphere encapsulates the Earth and acts as a shield or a barrier, right? So when UV rays or other electromagnetic waves try to penetrate the Earth's atmosphere, the ozone layer will actually filter most of it out, and only a minimal amount can actually penetrate the Earth, which is why the ozone layer is extremely helpful to us. Now, with air pollution, it depletes the ozone layer, correct? I stated that earlier. It depletes the ozone layer, and along with the greenhouse gases being trapped in our atmosphere, what the UV rays will do now is that they can penetrate the Earth easier, and usually they will try to bounce back off. Typically, they will bounce back off, right? But with the greenhouse gases, it can't bounce back off. So that means that the radiation and the heat is going to stay trapped in the atmosphere, which results in global warming and climate change. Pollution literally takes millions and millions of lives. Not just human lives, but marine lives, other animals, just any life form at this point. Let's talk about China as an example. It is one of the most polluted countries in the world due to the burning of natural gas and coal. China is enveloped in a thick smog, which according to the New York Times will kill at least 1.6 million people per year. That's just one country. Imagine other countries that are currently in this state as China is. Now let's talk about ways to solve this. Obviously, everything up to this point that I've talked about has a negative connotation. Now, let's talk about ways to solve this. Remember, I'm just a young, naive teenager, but I believe I can make a difference in our community if you're willing to help me as well. The small things count too. In your households, save water and energy so that less pollutants are released. An added incentive is that you won't have to pay as much for your electric and water bills. Along with that, when you're buying electronics, try looking for the Energy Star stamp on them. Energy Star appliances are more efficient in terms of using energy, and they don't consume that much as opposed to a standard product. If possible, reduce your use of diesel fuel transport to reduce the nitrogen oxides in the air. It is also a main contributor to air pollution. Another thing to do in your households is to change your ventilation filters to reduce air clutter, and make sure to always pick up your trash anywhere. If you see trash in any place, just do yourself a favor and do everyone else a favor by picking it up and throwing it away. I've talked about these plastic bottles in a section of these videos, but here, let's just take one. Recycling plastic bottles isn't as easy as most people think it is. People will just throw away these plastic bottles without giving it a second thought. However, you might want to remove the plastic cap and the lip of the bottle, because most recycling facilities don't actually take it, because it's usually created out of a different plastic than the actual bottle is. Nextly, if I can find it, try taking off the plastic thingamabob, this thing. I'm sorry, I have no idea what this is called. The label, goodness gracious, the label off, and throw these in the trash, okay? Other than that, try crushing your bottles, because this is gonna be more space efficient in your recycling bins. And yeah, that's pretty much how you recycle plastic bottles. Try doing this with every bottle. It's a small thing, but it goes to a larger cost. Now, this is one way of recycling your plastic bottles, taking off the label along with the cap and the lip, and then just leaving the bottle in the recycling bin. But that's only one way. There's not a universal way that you can actually recycle these bottles. Do some research in your county or wherever you might live, and make sure that you're doing your recycling right, because sometimes throwing the entire bottle in the plastic bin is not going to always help. Anyway, I hope I left you with something during this video. My goal of this personal project was to leave a mark on somebody and to kind of open your eyes to pollution and the dangers that it poses to us and to the entire world. And do yourself and do the environment a favor. Please pick up your trash whenever you're eating outside, or whenever you're doing anything. Don't ever throw your trash in the grass or anywhere. To be honest, just throw it in the trash can. It's not that hard. Just walk a couple feet, just plop it in, you're done. That's it. And make sure you take all of my advice. This was an kind of entry level video for a further understanding of pollution. So if you could take a couple minutes out of your day to just watch videos on pollution and kind of educate yourself on what you can do to make the world a better place. That's essentially what I'm trying to do here. And if you did enjoy this, please let me know. This was an extremely hard video to make, mainly because I usually improvise on my standard videos. However, this one had a script that was about 5 pages long, so I'm kind of proud of that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and to remember, always keep thinking. Yes, that feels so good. I finally finished. Let's go, baby. I've always wanted to say that, by the way.
Let's go!